Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of The Million Dollar Gift, ACMI's series that highlights the work done by volunteers and the energy given by volunteers here in the town of Arlington that improves all of our quality of life. And today we are out on the streets of East Arlington, and I will be talking with John Ellis. John is a member of Arlington's Tree Committee, and we are going to be talking about the work of the committee in general and about a specific project that you will soon hear about. So, John, wanted to thank you first of all for
Thank
joining
you.
us today. Really appreciate it. So, why don't we start by just you letting us know what is Arlington's Tree Committee and what is the scope of your duties or responsibilities, etc.
Well, the Town of Arlington Tree Committee is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and the state of Massachusetts has some very progressive laws that actually date back to the early 1900s about the protection of public street trees. And these laws date from a time when there was no air conditioning, and trees were often eaten and by horses. So the state made a law that protected public street trees, meaning a tree that sits in public land, which for the most part means that strip of land between the sidewalk and the street. And these trees are assets for all of Arlington's residents and taxpayers. They provide cooling, they provide windbreaks in the winter, they provide carbon dioxide suppression, they reduce the flooding from stormwater, and they're protected as those assets. And so those trees cannot be removed, they cannot be cut down without a hearing or special approval by either the Board of Selectmen or the tree warden. So the job of the tree committee is to work with the tree warden. The tree warden is a town employee who is also appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and that job is described in state law as to protect these public street trees. So specifically what the tree committee does is work on educating the public about the value, the financial benefits and aesthetic benefits of trees, but also making sure that we have laws and regulations and policies that allow that resource to be protected.
How do you go about doing that, the first part of that job that you were just talking about, which is the educating the public around the aesthetics and other values of our public tree population?
Well, the biggest effort that we're doing has actually been going on all summer, and we did a trial last year, and that is a street tree inventory. And this street tree inventory is beneficial for a number of reasons. One is that the town doesn't know how many trees it has, doesn't know the health of those trees, doesn't know the species of those trees. And those are important things to know because if there's a pest or a tree disease that, for example, only hits ash trees, the town probably wants to know where all of the ash trees in case they're going to be dying or they need to do some sort of remediation. And also the town wants to understand, how big are the trees, how old are the trees. So the tree committee embarked on a pilot project last summer to use a crowdsourced open source software called OpenTreeMap to do a tree inventory. And in addition to identifying the location of the trees and the things the town would be concerned about in terms of how healthy are they likely to fall, are they dangerous, are they safe, this program also is able to aggregate all of the information about what are the actual financial benefits of those trees using data from the U.S. Forestry Department about what is a tree of 20 inches or 40 inches or 10 inches expected to provide in terms of stormwater remediation, in terms of CO2 suppression. So what the tree committee did was a pilot program last summer, and we mapped about 1,000 street trees and also places that there was not a street tree but appeared to be a good planting location because the town does have money to spend on tree planting. And that program went quite well. We had a couple dozen volunteers helping out. And so last fall, myself and others from the tree committee wrote a grant to the state of Massachusetts, which funds forestry programs in communities. And we were successful in getting that grant. And as a result, we embarked this summer on a much larger tree inventory program. And specifically, that meant we hired a couple interns. We bought software licenses and computer. We were able to use the time of the town GIS department director, the time of the tree warden, the time of the director of DPW, to do a complete inventory of the town's trees. And we've just about completed that. And we exceeded what we had planned on doing. We were hoping to be able to map all of the public street trees, but we also were able to map all of the private road street trees. Arlington has many private roads. We were able to map trees in playgrounds and parks, and some conservation commission areas.
That's great. I think a couple of things. One is I think I remember that we highlighted on our news program a while back. You're receiving that grant. Was that a $15,000 grant?
Yeah, it was a $15,000 grant.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, that was a
Well
good success. And you know, we before we wrote the grant, we had gotten proposals from private contractors to do a street tree inventory, and one of the quotes was about $70,000. So we've been able to successfully do this entire tree inventory for the total program is $30,000, 15 of which is funded by the state. So for much less than predicted, we did more than we planned on doing. And also by engaging volunteers, because this inventory was done not just by the paid interns, but also volunteers, we've been able to connect community members who might not have necessarily appreciated or recognized the trees around them to do real citizen science and come up with data that's really useful, not just for education, but also for the town and its planning.
Right. I mean, in a sense, what you're doing is a paradigm of exactly what this series is about, right? You're taking this energy, this human labor that is voluntarily donated by, you know, at this point, unknown numbers, right, of volunteers, and leveraging that for the good of one and all.
Yeah.
And in the process, obviously, doing, as you said, much more than you set out to do for significantly less than
Yep.
it might have than one of the more commercial alternatives would have cost.
And we do further expect to sort of multiply the good of this, because about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the town of Arlington received a bequest from the estate of John McEachern for $150,000 for buying trees. And one of the reasons that we did this inventory was to figure out, well, how are we going to spend $150,000 and what is the best way to do that? And we'll use that information from the tree inventory to help plan that. And that's another initiative of the tree committee.
Great. So talking about the inventory, you said that you've either completed it or nearing completion on it. So talk to us a little bit about what you have found out. What is the overall, I don't know, the health of, in the aggregate of trees in Arlington? What's the situation there? You'd mentioned that last year's summer pilot program you had done looked at 1,000 trees. How many, now you've really kind of covered the whole town. How many trees are we talking about?
That's a great question, because we didn't know. The town didn't know ahead of time. We thought there might be about 20,000 trees. We've mapped 10,000 trees and we've completed the streets. So on the one hand, it's half as many as the town believed that they had. 40% of the trees are Norway maple. About 1% of the trees are ash trees. We're still sort of collecting the data, and we'll be making a report to the town and a management plan that you know, has in detail where are the areas of town that have a lot of tree canopy, where are the areas that don't, you know, where are the largest trees, you know, all those sorts of interesting data points. We're still collecting, but in general it's about 10,000 trees, and we'll be able to report on.
And are most of those trees in what you would designate as good
strip.
health? You know, are there effects of being here in Arlington where there's a lot of concrete around, our proximity to Boston, et cetera?
Well, two different interesting issues there. First, I don't have the data. I can't tell you.
Sure.
We'll report about, you know, what percentage were in good. And maybe before I answer your question more fully, I'll just explain what it is that we're actually doing. So volunteers use their own smartphone, or the intern uses a smartphone. They walk the streets, and using the app on the phone, they can add a tree. And to add a tree, they place a little marker inside the cell phone app that is overlaid with a Google satellite view of the street. So this tree here, if I was using my app, I could move a little pointer around and see from the Google satellite view where this tree was, and I would put that little dot right there. So now I've got a tree there. Then I would do 3 more things. I would measure the circumference of the tree so that I would know the diameter. I would identify the species of the tree, and I would make some sort of judgment on the health of the tree. Was it good, poor, fair, or dead? And if there was anything else that I wasn't unsure about that I wanted the tree warden to take a look at later, I might make a note of that. But those are the 4 pieces of information that we're recording: the actual location, species, health, and size. So that's what we're asking the volunteers to do from their smartphones.
This inventory is going to yield a whole lot of useful information. Is that going to be available, or is it already available for Arlington residents to access?
Yeah, it's available. The information is available in real time as we're updating the app. So you can go to opentreemap.org/Arlington and see the full map. Scroll down to your street, scroll down to the trees in front of your home, and look at what species is it, how big is it. You can also find out some information about the economic value of that tree, how much carbon dioxide does it suppress, how much rainwater does it suppress, and see also a Google Street View of the image itself. So what does the tree look like, and just validate that the information is correct. But it's all online, and you'll see this map looks like a map of Arlington with thousands of little green dots,
Yeah.
and some of the green dots are trees, some of the green dots are empty planting sites, but you can do all kinds of searches. If you wanted to find all the trees in Arlington that are over 40 inches, which is a really huge tree, you can look that up. If you want to find all the trees that are elm trees or ash trees, those are all very easy queries that anyone in the public can do from the website opentreemap.org/Arlington.
Wondering, is this the kind of thing that's going on in a number of towns, or is Arlington a little more, let's say unique in terms of pursuing something like this?
Other communities, I think, are interested in doing tree inventories. It's a big push by the tree wardens and people who care about trees in the state. But Arlington is at the forefront of this. The tree warden and myself gave a presentation at the 2017 Tree City USA conference, and we had a number of inquiries from other towns, Newburyport, possibly Chelsea, wanting to use the program that we're using, OpenTreeMap, and learn how we mobilized volunteers and wrote grants to do this. So I'm hoping that in the coming months we'll hear more from other towns, and we'll be able to show them the work that we did and help them kick that off in their towns.
Sure.
So you were asking, you had said how healthy are Arlington street trees, and what is the health, and how is it impacted by proximity to the city and maybe pavement and other.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the interesting things that we learned during the course of this is there is a new resident to Arlington who was actually a professor at BU who studies this very question of how do trees suppress carbon dioxide? What are the growth rates of trees? How are urban trees more beneficial or less beneficial than a tree in a forest? And one of the outcomes of her research is that actually the data we're using in our program, which is just part of the program that tells us how much carbon dioxide is suppressed based on the tree growth rate, probably underestimates the benefit of trees. And that's because a tree in a location like this actually grows faster than a tree in the forest. And that's because these trees here, they don't have much competition for sunlight, so there's not a whole lot of other trees that are preventing them. They get runoff from people watering their lawns. They get a slightly longer growing season because of the pavement. It's warmer earlier and warmer later, and a longer growing season, as long as it's not too hot, means a faster growing tree. So in general, in terms of carbon suppression, trees in a place like a suburban environment like Arlington are actually growing faster and providing greater ecosystem benefits than you might otherwise expect in a forest environment. So that's something interesting that we've learned.
Yeah, and a nice balancing with the fact that obviously this environment itself, in this environment, we need
Yes.
our trees to perform that function at an even higher level
Yes.
than where there's the density of the forest,
Yes.
but also the less of an impact, less of humankind's impact
Yeah. Yeah.
going on around them. So you had alluded to the fact that there are a number of volunteers who have been performing the inventory, and I know that we'll see some of them at work
Yep.
as well. What are those numbers? How many people, if you know, or even a
Well,
rough estimate, are involved with this effort?
we're at about 250 to 300 volunteer hours, and that's probably I don't know, 40 or 50 different volunteers. Very diverse age range. My 7-year-old son helped out. We have retired folks. We have people from the high school who are doing community service. So a pretty wide cross-section of people from the town of Arlington who've received some training on how to use it and done meetups. We've done probably about, I don't know, 30 or 40 different meetups during the course of the summer to have volunteers come and map a street. And right now we have a bunch of volunteers working here on Marathon Street, which is one of the few that we haven't gotten to.
So is this inventory? It's obviously a big project, and it's going to be coming up with a set of pretty comprehensive data. It sounds like that is going to be useful, as you said, not only to give a snapshot of where the health of trees is at and the density or lack thereof of trees in different areas, but also for planning purposes, like you were saying. I'm wondering, is this a once in a long time effort? Volunteers who have come in working on the tree inventory, they're not going to be needing to do that again for some time, is that right? Or
Well, we're still working out what this means for the long-range plan. There are a few things that we know and a few things that we don't know. So we know that all of this data is going to be imported into the town GIS system. And that will allow us to also look at stuff like, where are fire hydrants, where are telephone wires below relative to the trees. The town has data about damaged sidewalks that might be damaged by roots, so we could sort of map what trees are damaging the roots, and it'll just become a part of the town's overall inventory of all of the assets of the town. Going forward, the tree department intends to use this tool as it is doing removals to remove trees that it's taken down, and as it plants new trees. It plants about 200 new trees a year, so it'll be able to do that. And in terms of a broader inventory, I'm not sure. I don't think we have a strategy for when this would have to happen next.
Okay, so I mean, I was asking in part because we would love our audience to know. I'm sure that some folks who are watching will be interested in knowing, wow, that's pretty cool what these guys are doing, and how can I get involved? Well, it may not be the tree inventory itself, but obviously we do want to invite people to get involved.
Yep.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what other avenues there are for that.
Well, the Tree Committee has quite a few different initiatives. One of the easiest ways that you don't really have to do much in the way of joining a committee or making a huge commitment is that you can request a tree to be planted in front of your house or in front of your neighbor's house or in front of a place that you think there should be a tree. And the town asks you to commit to watering that tree because they want to know that somebody's going to be looking out for it, because town might not have the resources to water it. So if there are spots near your home that you think are good places for trees, I'd encourage you to go to the town website and submit a tree request and get a tree planted there. We are always looking for new members for the Town of Arlington Tree Committee that meets monthly, and we're doing things like figuring out how to spend that bequest money that I spoke about, doing programs that are sort of reduced cost planting on private property for a tree that's on private property but might shade a public street. There's some funding for helping homeowners buy those at a lower rate than they might pay by just going to the store themselves. So those are just a few kinds of things that we're
Sounds
working on.
good. So I'd like to just refocus a little bit now, nearing the end of our chat, on your own personal motivation and story. If you can just kind of share with us, have trees been a part of your own value system for a very, very long time? Is this by happenstance? How is it that you find yourself, on Arlington's Tree Committee, and choosing to channel your own energy in this particular direction?
Well, I became most interested in the tree committee when I learned of that bequest, which I mentioned, and I found out that the town hadn't actually spent any of it yet. And unlike certain kinds of grants, a donation for tree planting, trees are an asset that the value grows over time. So if the town were to get a grant for art, you might want to split that up over decades. But the real payback on a tree planting is if you plant a tree now and then in 20 years you have a much larger tree. So I wanted to work with the committee to figure out how to spend that money and make sure that we were planting as many trees as possible, because trees have a true financial impact and a benefit on the well-being of all of the residents. There have been studies that show that homes with street trees in front of them have a higher resale value than homes without them. There have been studies that show that residents, correcting for every other factor, who live on streets with lots of trees are healthier and feel healthier. There have been studies that show that retail districts with lots of trees have higher foot traffic and better store revenues. So there are a lot of benefits, financial benefits to the town of the trees, and I wanted to be sure that the town was realizing that asset, protecting that asset, and spending its money in a way that maximized that asset.
Yeah, and I have to say that is a great point that you make, where a grant for this kind of thing or a request for this kind of thing is just fundamentally different from most ways that we would think about how to spend that kind of money or that kind of request, because you illustrate very well that in this particular case you want to spend as much of that money
Yep.
as you can right away to
Yep.
get this going,
Yes.
because the benefits will
It's down the road.
continue and
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. I also did want to mention that among the various other advantages or benefits conferred by trees on all of us, we happen to be talking on an unusually cool summer day at the moment, but it's in the recent past and certain to come that we will all be seeking the nearest trees, as we always do in the summertime,
Yep.
just for the shade alone. And as you had alluded to way back when we were first talking, before the days of air conditioning, et cetera, trees, the value of trees
Yeah.
was very palpable for
Yep.
people. So it continues.
Yeah, and
even
absolutely.
today.
If you have a street tree that's shading your front, you're going to pay less in air conditioning and heating than somebody who doesn't.
And so just wondering, how long have you yourself been an Arlington resident, and is the tree committee the first opportunity for you to volunteer, or have you done other things?
I've been a resident since 1999, and I'd say this is my first. I'm a town meeting member, so I'm involved in town politics that way, and the tree committee.
Right, so maybe we'll come back and talk to you about your town meeting
Yeah,
work
sure,
at some
sure.
point. But we did want to thank you very
Yeah,
much
thank
for
you.
spending some time with us
Yeah.
today and talking about Arlington's tree inventory, which it's clear, I hope, to everybody what the value of that is for the community. So
Great.
appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And good luck with your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the $1 Million Gift, I am James Milan with John Ellis from the Tree Committee here in Arlington, and we thank you for joining us.